Welcome back to Coaches of Louisville. Today I have Scott Whitenack, coach at Ballard High School. He's coached elementary, some club teams and everything, so we want to just hear a little bit of his story. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me out here today. Honored to be one of the coaches of Louisville, following the great Barry Hayworth. So thank you for having me.
All right. So we first want to just get to know you a little bit. Tell us a little bit of backstory.
So how I got into, well, I'll start with how I got into running, because I didn't run in high school or college. I played basketball at PRP, and that kind of growing up, I know Barry kind of talked about the same thing where he was growing up. It was football, baseball, basketball, and it was the same things for me out there in PRP. We played at PRP, we played at Valley Sports. But I didn't really run as a kid. I ran with my dad sometimes, and there was things called a fun run that they had sometimes, different places, and me and my cousins would go there and run, or we did the mile run in school. But it wasn't anything, you know, when I was in middle school, we had Johnson. Cross country was just like, hey, there's a cross country race on Tuesday. Come get a t-shirt if you want to run the race. So it wasn't anything where you practiced and anything like that. You just showed up and ran. And I was good at it, but again, it just wasn't something that we did. And the cool kids played basketball and baseball and football, so I didn't really look at it as a sport per se. So then after high school, wasn't into playing basketball much anymore, but I had picked up some habits that made it hard to get up and down the basketball court. So I was like having trouble getting up and down the basketball court. So at that time, I was like, man, I'm going to start running. And I lived in the Highlands at the time. And there was a girl that lived down the street that ran for Bellarmine. And I thought I was really going to impress her with my running prowess, because it was just running, and it's just running. So I ran from my apartment into Cherokee Park, and it was bad. It was a very bad run. It was not good. And she was not impressed either. But from that point on, I really got into this thing where I really enjoyed running, and I kind of started to figure out what it was. I ran in my first mini marathon, and the day after that, I had a bad choice on shorts that day and apparel. So the next day, I got my first pair of running shorts. It was like life-changing. So that's kind of how I picked up running, and I just kind of kept going from there and meeting more people, and it just became, you know, I didn't want to play basketball anymore. Everybody always wanted to think they were still going to the NBA, and it always became confrontational, and I was just like, I would rather do running. And so I've met a lot of cool people, and that's kind of how I got started into running. My coaching journey goes a little different than that, though. My coaching journey, I thought I was going to be a basketball coach, and I tried that for a little while, and I do not have the personality to be a basketball coach. There were like technical fouls and ejections and things like that, so I don't have that like calm personality kind of like that. So I talked to my principal. I teach 4th grade at Chenoweth Elementary, and I talked to my principal then about starting a cross country team. And she had approved it. She had said it was okay. And the next year, the Max Gilpin thing happened at PRP, and she said, we don't have insurance for it, we're not doing it. So she shut it all down, wouldn't let me do it. So I came back to her the next year and was like, please let me do it, and had all these list of schools that did it, and she agreed to let me do it. And we started off as a real little team, and I think a lot of parents thought it was like this after-school parent club. And so I had to kind of weed that out at an early age. And then that program kept growing, and I coached Chenoweth for 10 years. And in the meantime of that, you know, my program was kind of stagnant. We were growing a little bit, but not. I was looking at some of these other programs, and I saw like huge numbers of kids, and I was just wondering what these coaches were doing different that I wasn't doing. And I actually got in contact with Joe Beekler.
Love Joe, he's awesome.
Yeah, so Joe, local running legend. I got in with him, and he introduced me to Derby City and David Flower and Kenny Stopman. And I kind of saw what they did and how it was kind of different. David Flower has a lot of like different ideas about things at practices that he does that are fun with the kids. Kenny's the same way, and it kind of showed me, all right, this is kind of what you do to get kids involved. So those three guys really kind of brought me in and showed me, you know, how to build a program really, because at that time, Chenoweth, we were never really all that good. We just had a bunch of kids showing up. So did Derby City for a few years and had some success with that. And then in the process of that, picked up coaching at JCTMS. So I coached JCTMS for 2 years. And then so the weird thing that happened, this great epiphany that happened was I went to the Smoky Mountain running camp in Asheville, North Carolina. And all week long I was with this middle school group, but on the last day of camp, they wake everybody up early and they take them out and you run up the side of this mountain. You end at the top of the Blue Ridge Parkway. It's an awesome run. So I was like, man, I want to go with the high school kids. Like, I want to go with the real racing kids. They think this is a race. So I went with those high school kids and it was awesome. Got on the bus with the high school kids and we're coming down Blue Ridge Parkway and the sun's just coming up. It's the most beautiful sight. And these kids are on there and they're playing music. And these are kids that didn't know each other at the beginning of the week, most of them. Mm-hmm. And they're all singing these songs as you're going down. And to me, it was the coolest bus ride I'd ever had. I just sat there and watched it happen. It was the coolest thing. And so I left that camp and I was on my way to Del Hollow Lake to meet with my family at the lake. And literally, I don't know what song was on or whatever, but I had tears streaming down my eyes and I'm thinking there's gotta be more, I gotta do more. I don't know what it is, but I gotta do more. And at that time, I was coaching Chenoweth, JCTMS, and then Derby City. So literally, the next week I get home and I get a phone. I was getting ready to cut grass and I get a phone call from my friend, Sam Meredith, who was the coach at Ballard at the time. And he says, hey, can you coach Ballard's team, basically? And I told him no initially, actually. Told him no. And I said, actually, give me a second. Let me think about it. I need to go cut the grass. And while I was cutting the grass, it that car ride to the lake hit me. When you were crying and thinking there has to be more, what do you think this is? What do you think this opportunity is right here? So I stopped cutting grass right then and ran in and called Sam and was like, Sam, I'm coaching Ballard, man. So the first year I actually coached Chenoweth, JCTMS, and Ballard all at the same time, which made for a lot of long nights. And the Rumble Through the Jungle that year, I was there from literally the first race to the last race. I ran 14 miles as a coach up and around the course. So it was really crazy. And then did the club stuff, and I didn't realize how fatigued I was, how worn out I was till after the season. And it was just took a week to just get back recharged. But then, like I said, COVID happened, and that kind of made this natural break in coaching the elementary school teams. And I stopped coaching Derby City at the same time. In 2020, in February 2020, my cousin and her little girl died in a car wreck, and I just needed to take a step back. I needed to go see my family do stuff more than being with other kids all the time. And then I started really thinking about Ballard at the time too, that they had taken a chance to hire me. And I felt also that there were parents these are pretty formative years for kids, these 4 years of high school, and there's parents that are choosing to send their kids to Ballard over somewhere else to run for me. And I felt like I would be doing them an injustice if they put that trust in me with their kid, and I'm only giving them 50%. Or half of my time here and half of my time over here. I felt like it was very disrespectful to those parents that were choosing to send their kids to Ballard. So then that's when I just said, all right, we're going all in on Ballard. And then last year, Jacob and Thomas started Thompson training. And I've been friends with them for a while, and Thomas coached with me at Derby City for a while, so he brought me in there, and here we are today at Ballard. So, really excited. And my coaching journey is kind of really weird and stuff, but honestly, I want to tell this story too. My first meet I showed up was an elementary school meet, and it was a little meet. Now that I know what meets are, it was a little meet, and I swear I rode past it just looking at it going, that's got to be a high school meet. Kids got on uniforms, and there's tents, and my kids had on mismatching t-shirts. We were the Bad News Bears if there ever was a team. But that's always been kind of my MO as far as coaching goes. We'll take this kind of team from the bottom that nobody knows about and kind of work them all the way up. So it really fit my MO, and but it was really eye-opening that first meet. Man, I got a lot of work to do to get this program to look like a real program. So I learned a lot at the beginning there.
Right, I bet. What are some of the key things? We have a lot of aspiring coaches or newer coaches, either you have experience at all levels. And so what are a few things that you wish you would have known when you were first becoming a coach to now?
Probably one thing, one thing, and this is really speaking to elementary school coaches too, is that you all are doing so very important work. And a lot of the higher coaches sometimes disrespect you, or like don't give you the full like appreciation that you're a coach and what you're doing. You're more seen of like a herder of cats. And I want to tell all the elementary school coaches out there, keep doing what you're doing. Like, keep doing what you're doing, because it's the next level it's the next group of kids that come up. So one thing that I wish I would have known when I started was like who to go and talk to for help, like who's going to be helpful for you. For me, it was actually Barry Hayworth. Was one of the first coaches that, and it just happened kind of organically. My team was practicing right here at Seneca Park as his team was finishing. And then conversation started. I found out his kids went to Chenoweth. They had the same 5th grade teacher that I was a student teacher with at Chenoweth. So it was kind of a connection that way. And he really, and really his advice to me was just keep it fun with the kids. Keep it fun. And that's what I would tell any young coach. I would tell you as you transition from elementary to middle school, you can get by on natural talent. A kid can get by on natural talent up through 5th grade, basically. Some kids can maybe go into 6th grade on that, but you really got to start, if they want to be competitive in running, once they get into middle school, they got to start putting in miles. I wish I would have known early on to open it up to the little kids, because I really just started at like 4th and 5th grade and started there, and I wouldn't let the little kids come for a while. But I wish I would have opened it up to them. Those are probably the main things. Don't be scared to try something different. You don't have to do what every other coach is doing, but keep it fun with your kids, and again, don't ever feel like what you're doing is not amazing work. I mean, some of these elementary school programs have 60, 70 kids, 80 kids, 100 kids, parents that travel all over the state. It's really amazing what some of these younger programs are. So that would be my main thing. I want to encourage those young coaches to keep coaching. And I think the other thing that people hear a lot, you hear a lot if you don't work with kids, and I think this keeps people away from coaches, you hear about how bad kids are. Kids are bad. Kids are all these middle school kids, they're like, oh, they're in trouble all the time. The good news for most people that would be thinking about cross country is that most of the kids that run cross country aren't those kids, right? Most of the kids that run cross country are good kids. So I would just tell you that kids are good kids. They just need somebody to look up to. They need somebody to pass that passion on to them. A lot of them just don't know. They don't know what they don't know. They don't know how transformative running can be. So I would just say bring a lot of energy and passion with you every day, and but have standards for your team too. Don't just let it be a team where everybody just comes out just because, like, have an expectation for your kids and say, this is what I expect out of you all. So, and that differs for each grade and things like that. But those would be some of the main tips I would give young coaches.
It's amazing to see cross country going down to kindergarten now. I know it wasn't very big when I was in elementary school or anything like that, as far as like the younger kids, but now all these school programs, like figuring out how to do it with the younger ones. So it doesn't have to be, oh, I have to wait till 3rd grade, but getting people to that love of running beforehand. So it's not just that punishment, which a lot of sports are used to. So everyone's like, oh no, cross country, but now they're starting to enjoy it. So hopefully when they get out of high school, it's not that thing that they dread doing because it's been punishment their whole lives. It's something that they want to continue to do, because you can pick it up, and running can take you on a journey wherever you want.
Yeah. And running's fun to kids. Like, as kids, they run around for fun, but then somewhere along the line, they lose that fun of running. So it's really just trying to bring that fun, but like, they have a natural joy of running. You watch kids everywhere, on the playgrounds everywhere. The little kids, they're running all over the place. But then we say, like, hey, let's do this. No, I don't want to do that. Like, somewhere along the line, that there's this skewed view of what it is too. So
and as far as you were coaching multiple teams, how did you juggle that? I know, like, you didn't feel like you were giving Ballard your best, but I know we have some coaches where they are coaching multiple teams. Maybe they have kids on multiple teams. Like, how did you kind of balance that, and how did you make it work?
I think you have to be humble enough to ask for help. So I wouldn't have been able to do that in my early years of coaching, just because I was too kind of stubborn and hard-headed and thought I could just do it all myself. And then I started figuring out, like, what to give parents and what to do myself. So the more parent involvement that you have, the better. The more parents that you can get out there to run with you, to actually do this, like when it becomes a lifestyle to them, becomes real to the kid also. That would be like the main things.
Yeah, and for like you're running now, as you continue to run with your kids, and I don't know if you're training for anything or not, you can definitely let us know. But like, what keeps you wanting to run?
That's a good question, and I have the kids talk about this as one of the first things we talk about at practice is what's your why? What is the why that brings you out here? Because there's going to be bad days, and there's going to be bad weather days, and there's going to be days other people are doing other stuff you'd rather do. It's more fun. So what gets you out the door every day? And I think that changes from day to day. I think sometimes you make an excuse to have motivation to go out the door. Like you make an excuse to go run. But I would say that the main things that keep me going, number one is I think that when people see me out there running and sweating or whatever, and like, I think they ride by and look and like think that person's crazy. And I like that they think that. You know, I run with the Corf Edge group sometimes, and those guys are crazy. I love it. And like other people look at them, they're like, man, them guys are crazy. And I think in a sense that's kind of what keeps us going. And then the other thing that keeps me going at this point is, again, I referred to my cousin and her daughter that were killed in a car wreck. During that whole process, she was a firefighter, and during that whole process, I was introduced to the chief. And when I was talking to him, he was kind of looking at it, he goes, oh, you're the cousin that runs. And just knowing that was like, as far as how my cousin described me, that was the last way I know that she described me was her cousin that runs. That gets me out the door. You know, like, I can't not be the cousin that runs anymore because Leslie would be so disappointed in me. You know, like I would feel her hand like push me out the door, like make me go running. So the fact that other people recognize me as that because this is what my cousin said, I feel like I can't let her down kind of thing. You know, it's like, I don't know. I feel like I can't let her down, if that makes sense. So that's what gets me out the door. I can't keep up with the high school kids much anymore. I run with the younger kids, try to teach them pace. But like my top boys, they're gone. Right. You know, like I can't, I'm too old for that.
Right. Well, speaking on Ballard, so we're sitting at Ballard, but I was here a couple weeks ago with our kids running camp, and as far as that motivational side, y'all were doing planks, and I could just hear you the positive words that you were saying and trying to get them to dig a little bit deeper. Planks are hard work, but what is it that positive, like self-talk, all of that? Running is a mental sport. It's a physical, obviously, but that mental game, how do you prep them in that way?
When we're talking about like core work and things like that, we talk about the fact that, yeah, it's core work, but it's also mental training, that you're going to get to the point of a race where it hurts. Where your body's gonna say, dude, just stop. And you can stop there. But another thing that we talk about too is like instant gratification versus delayed gratification. And we're in this culture of instant gratification. And when you're in the middle of a tough workout or you're in the middle of a hard plank, instant gratification is stopping. Like instant gratification is just slowing down a little bit on that run, dropping a little bit on that plank, stopping a few minutes or a few seconds early. That's instant gratification, but that keeps us from getting our ultimate gratification. So we have to practice delayed gratification if what we want is to get that goal. So part of what we do is we talk about mental training, and we do some hardcore work at the end of every practice. And really, as we're doing that, my main thing to them is that this is your body in a race right now. It wants to quit. It's hard. You have the option to quit. I'm not going to make you not quit. You can quit if you want. But the finish line is not going to move. You know, like your mental battle is going to continue on during your race. So as far as that goes, it's really teaching them that. In the middle of a workout, what we find by looking at numbers and races, we look at a lot of splits and look at workouts, and what we find is that 3/4 of the way through, the third lap of the mile, that's the slowest one, or you know, the third 200 in an 800 is the slowest one. So when we get to the third rep of something, or we're 3/4 of the way through, it's really before they start. I really need you all to focus right now. Like, I know we're getting to the hard part of the workout. This is the middle part of the race. This is where you have to focus even more. Like, this is where people are breaking down and you have to focus even more. And again, part of that goes to, so when I played basketball at PRP, we hated Ballard. We were like the best 2 teams in the city, so we hated them. And our coaches would always tell us, Ballard has great athletes, but if you just keep the pressure on them, eventually mentally they'll break. And so when I started coaching here, I mean, that was a lot of my talk to these kids, is that all I've ever heard about Ballard is that the kids mentally break when it gets tough, and we're going to get past that. But it's also teaching them to have pride in the program. We're not going to walk around the school like a bunch of dorky little cross-country kids. Like that big kid on the football team, that linebacker, he can't do what you do. He cannot do what you do. Even the slowest kid on my team, that kid can't do what you do. So you walk around with a sense of pride, and when you wear Ballard cross-country into the school and you see other kids, like, they're going to know that kid works hard. You know, like, I've sent kids home before and say, hey, you can't be a part of Ballard cross-country. That's just not, it's not in the cards for you. But the kids that do stay, they meet this standard of, I'm not everybody's coach. I'm not a coach for everybody. I'm pretty tough on the kids, but every kid that runs for me knows that I love them. Like, love them to death. I spend more time with them than I do my own family. You know, I talk to them about their own personal goals and know what they want to achieve, both in running and outside of running. So I really do, you know, love coaching at Ballard. Our track program, we got 2 great track coaches too, James Greenlee and Coach Larry Jackson. We had a kind of a surprise finish at state this year in track, and we're really building that program. And again, they kind of fall in line with me as far as the same mentality. You know, we're starting from the bottom and we got to build our way up. So, you know, we just got this new track here, and it's really just trying to instill this mentality to kids that Ballard's where you come to run. Ballard's where you come to be bad. Like, Ballard's where the best, like, that's where you're going to come, and you're going to have the best looking gear, and you're going to have all this stuff, but you're going to be tough. And every kid that lines up on the line with you is going to be tough too, and you're going to have that faith in your teammates there. So it's really coaching them through that mental toughness. Again, that's something you hear about a lot of kids these days. They're all on their phones and they're all into other things. They're not mentally tough, things like that. So it's really teaching them that. And again, I love it here at Ballard, and love coaching the kids. And I won't coach anywhere else in Jefferson County just because Ballard gave me the chance. I'm kind of, you know, loyal in that sense, the underdog kind of thing. So, and again, now it's just instilling this chip on every other kid's shoulder. I kind of coach with a chip on my shoulder kind of thing, like the underdog role, kind of working our way up. And for a lot of these kids, they've never competed. They've never been in any competition, so they don't know, like, they don't know how to self-talk or self-motivate themselves. So a lot of times it's me having to do it for them. One of my favorite examples I had a couple years ago, right over here under the bleachers over here, I had some boys in a track race that I just didn't think were giving me 100%, some of my freshman boys. And I said to them at practice the next day, you know, I was pretty stern with them, and I told them I didn't really like their effort and everything, and they had gotten beat by some kids from Manual. And I said, let me tell y'all something. I know that the only reason some of you kids are here is because you didn't get into Manual. Like, that's the only reason you run for Ballard now is because you applied to Manual and they said you ain't getting in here. So here's what happened. They looked at a piece of paper with 2 names on it, and they said, we like this kid more than we like this kid. And they pushed you off to the side, and they ended up sending you over to me at Ballard. And here that kid is in the race right ahead of you, and you can't go get him? And I kind of turn and walk away. And then I come back and I say, maybe Manual got it right. Maybe Manual did pick the right kid. And I kind of walk away, and boy, when I turned back around, the boys were like, they were all ready to fight me. You know, like, they were ready to attack me right then. But again, it was the first time that I ever saw like a fire in their eyes. Like, what did he just say to us? Kind of thing. So again, they know I love them, and that's said in like a challenging way. But that's probably one of my best stories as far as like turning around and actually seeing them. And if they could have, I think they would have fought me right then. But just the way they looked at me. But I think it was also the first time I saw that, all right, maybe we got something here. But again, they don't know how to, you know, all the greats, the Michael Jordans, the Kobe Bryants, all those, if you read about them, they all self-motivated. They made up stories about the opponent just to get them in a mind frame like that. But a lot of these kids are so sweet and so nice, they don't they don't have that inside of them. So you got to kind of even coach that stuff into them. So it's fun in that sense. It's fun starting to see them really like get that fire inside of them, want to do the training, you know, looking at other kids' workouts and seeing what they're doing and where they think they can be. So it's fun when you finally see, you know, as a teacher, when you see the light bulb come on. As a coach, when you see like the fire start is when you like, it's all going good, you know, like it's the best part of coaching.
For sure. No, I love that story. That would definitely fire me up and make me want to get out there and prove something. And I think that's where, like you said, with Ballard as being like the underdog story, working on that team in itself and building Ballard up, and they're a part of that legacy. And so what they do matters, and what the rest of the team is doing now matters.
Yep.
What do you think from the beginning of when you started with Ballard to now? Like, what's the differences? Y'all have grown, I mean, had some success, and it's been cool to watch from the outside. I knew Sam, you know, before you took over, and so was excited to see. We were like, oh, me and Sam's leaving, but was excited to see what you would do with the team.
Right. When I started, when I started, there was not a lot of commitment from the kids. They had no clue what a training plan was. The uniform situation. I met Sam at Gersel's on Thursday night before Tiger Run and got a Tupperware bin that had been soaked in water. It was all smelled like mold inside. There was mismatching uniforms in there. You know, I had one or two seniors the first year, not really any kids that could drive or anything like that. And really what I saw, the main thing that I saw that was like the thing I needed to really put the effort in to turn around was the individuality. It was not a team. It was not a team in the sense that after practice they would hang out outside of practice, or they would text each other, or they even enjoyed being around each other. They were like hated each other at practice. These girls didn't like these girls, these boys didn't like these boys. It was always something. And so I knew I couldn't coach a team like that, or I knew I couldn't develop a program like that. So probably the main thing that's the main difference is that they like being around each other. They actually actually enjoy being around each other. Like the girls are the defending SWAGs Trivia Night champions, and they'll defend that title again this year over St. X and all them teams like they did last year. But it's just stuff like that. Like they like getting together about that stuff. We do team dinners before some of the races. They hang out with each other outside of practice. They're like actually friends with each other. They cheer each other on at practice, you know, even down to the slowest kid. You know, my fastest kids are done with their workout or whatever, they finished their rep, and they're waiting for the last kids to finish, and they're cheering those kids on. So seeing that has been probably the biggest difference, and the thing that I'm most proud of is like seeing the kids gel as a team, hearing about kids that sit together at lunch and eat lunch together, and they talk about running while they're at lunch. You know, like that's cool to me, because it feels like they didn't used to do this, and now they're doing this. So they're starting to pick up on my passion. Like, man, I'm starting to pass my passion along to them. So, and that's really the ultimate goal of coaching. The other thing I see now, the other big thing I see now is just that there's a little bit more pride in the program. There just wasn't pride in being a Ballard cross-country runner. You know, again, it was like the dorks of the school, like these kids over here, whatever, how kids with the short shorts on. They didn't get no respect, and really that started a whole thing last year at one of the track meets. I had a group of girls, not 2 years ago, and they said, we don't get no respect from the other teams. And I was like, y'all don't, no kidding, y'all are terrible. Like, y'all are terrible. It doesn't matter to the football team that you come in 5th in the region and get to go on to state. That doesn't impress them, because to them they have to win to go on. So the basketball team, baseball team, same way. So if you want respect, you got to earn that respect. You got to start being good, because we're not at this point. And I swear at that exact moment, I turned and looked at Coach Jackson at the time. I said, or it was Coach Farmer at the time. I said, what time's football team get here in the summer? They said 8 o'clock. They're in the weight room. I said 8 o'clock. They're in the weight room. Cross country team 7 o'clock a.m. Every day we're in the weight room 7 a.m. When the football team gets here, they're gonna know we exist as a team. And really, the kids didn't understand what I was saying. They had no clue what I was saying. And the football coach walked in the first day and looked around, and he was like, what team is this? He had no clue that there was a cross-country team. So now people know at the school. Like, people know, like, there's a cross-country team, and there's kids that are actually pretty good, and they walk around together in the school. You see them together. They wear cross-country gear. They have, like, pride in the program. So those are probably the two things that I'm the most proud of, that kids are starting to, like, have the pride in the program. And then kind of what I referred to earlier, that kids are starting to have the passion for running. Outside of me, on their own, they follow runners on Instagram, they talk to me about workouts and running and things like that, that they start to be students of the game, students of the sport. They're talking about shoes now. You know, I'm a shoe lover, so they're coming to me talking about different kinds of shoes and things like that. So just starting to see that they pick up that passion. Again, I think that's number one thing of coaching, is that you pass that passion on to the next group, because somebody's got to be the coach when you leave. You know, there's got to be a next generation of coaches. So, you know, just being able to give that passion to the next group of kids, and then educate them on why you're doing what you're doing, so they don't just run around like chickens with their head cut off. They understand that every day is not a hard day, but here's why every day's not a hard day. Here's the benefits of why we're going slower. So really talking to them and making sure they understand that they think I'm crazy anyway. So I like them to know why I'm this kind of crazy. Like, here's the reason why I think this. So in that sense, those are the things I'm most proud of. Obviously, there are good things going on with running, but I always feel like the results just kind of come as the program gets better. And I don't mean like better running wise. I mean, like, as kids start to enjoy it, they start to go run on their own on Sundays, or run with a group on Sundays and that kind of thing. That's when the program really grows. So that's really what I'm most proud of, and where I've really put my focus over these last few years.
That's awesome. And to instill that culture of it, where they want to go out and run on their own.
Right.
And so getting that passion where they're the students of the sport, which is awesome to see, is because running is something that can take you on a journey through your entire life.
Yep.
I mean, you have other sports, but at the same time, like running, you can go out your door anytime and do it. But finding those friends and finding those things there to be able to pull you through their life's ups and downs. And
I also ask them too all the time, like, where are your running legs going to take you? Where are your running legs going to take you? And it might be a meet that you go run out of town somewhere, but it might also be that you go to college. I had a kid a couple years ago that came out for track. He was a soccer player, played 4 years of soccer, never ran track. Long story short, comes out and runs the 800, 8th in the state, walks on at Western Kentucky, and is now at Coastal Carolina. All because he came out and decided to run. And the kids got to see that happen, and that was probably a big turning point in the program too. They saw this tough kid come out of nowhere and like go on and make running his thing. And so I ask them all the time, where are your running legs going to take you? Because, you know, I've been to races all over the country with friends and things like that, and meets for little kids and things all over the country. So where are your running legs going to take you? Because it's just, again, it's an inexpensive sport. You can just walk out the door and you're there. You're in heaven, you know? So, yeah.
And as your team has been more students of the sport, I know you have your Bluegrass Running Camp hat on, and I know you took quite a few athletes this year. How was that experience, do you think, that helped them? I mean, with summer training too, to be dedicated to do that, but have something fun in the summer to learn even more.
Yeah, so Bluegrass Running Camp. So a couple years ago, Jacob and Thomas asked me to help with the Bluegrass Running Camp. And so then in a sense that became where I take my team as a camp, right? So we don't do like a team camp somewhere, we go there to camp. But that's where I want them to be. I was encouraging, before Bluegrass Running Camp, I was encouraging them to go to the Smoky Mountain Running Camp. And again, not so much because of the running, but because as runners, especially young kids, and I have friends that are the same way, they don't understand what you're doing. You're doing what? You're running? When you go to camp, every kid's in that same mentality. Every kid's in that same mentality. And then you start talking to kids from other teams about their training. You start hearing about other kids. And it's no different than, seeing how hard people have to work at one sport. You know, basketball players, they go to the Olympics and they play with Michael Jordan and they see, oh my goodness, to be great, I have to work this hard. So, you know, my kids go to camp and there's Sammy Hatab, he's a state champion. There's Kiera O'Shea, he's a state champion. You want to step your game up? See how you compare to that kid right there, because that's the bar that we're working to. I took 11 kids this year. They had a great experience. It was a great time. They get the college experience of being in the dorms. They get a little bit of freedom from their parents. They have to be places at certain times on campus. But it's so fun to just sit back and watch it happen. It's so fun. You know, Jacob has a great time. Thomas has a great time. Jimmy Burris from Bethlehem is also one of the coaches that helps with that. But it's a great experience. We had Tim Bailey, who ran for Great Britain a couple years ago, World Championship 800. He was there all week. He's a sports psychologist now. So again, he works with Jacob as a sports psychologist. He can come all week, and these kids had access to this resource, this guy who they can talk to who spends his time talking to professional athletes. So what a better way to get your mind ready to do this sport than talk to a professional athlete. And then again, you have these college runners. You can talk to college runners about what they do as workouts, and you can see that kind of stuff. And then again, you get to run with Jake. He's a pro runner. So to a kid, that's a cool, you know, that's shooting basketball with a pro basketball player. I'm here with a pro runner, and to a running kid, that's the coolest thing, you know. So it's a great experience. I would encourage any coach to take their kids there. We had 20 teams maybe with 5+ or something like that. It was 11 states. I mean, kids are starting to come from all over the place. And then again, other coaches come. Coaches come with their kids too and can hear things. And it's good too, because you kind of feel sorry for some of the kids that are in some situations. I mean, at one of the workouts we did at camp, we did some 800 tempo repeats and gave them like 50% rest in between, and kind of explained to them what their body's going to feel as they're doing it, and they shouldn't get done and feel like they're laid out on the ground or whatever. We get done with this workout, and they'd run 6 800s, a little bit of rest in between, different paces for each group based on what they could do. And we're running back to campus, and I'm talking to this girl from out of state, and she was like, "Man, that was a good workout. Like I've never really felt like this after a workout like that." And I go, "Have you ever done a workout like that?" She goes, "No. At our school, our coach tells us to run 800s as hard as we can. So we usually get about 3 of them done, then we're all laid out on the track." And you know, I'm just like a tears rolling down my eye, and I'm going, "Oh my gosh, there's nobody to tell you that's a terrible workout." You know, so being able to kind of educate kids, and again, being able to pass that passion on to just a bigger audience. But then, you know, my kids meet kids from other parts of the state. You show up at the races, and now you know that kid, and you say hey to that kid. So it's really good in that sense. But yeah, I love it. I think any kid would benefit from it. But again, more in the sense of you're around other people that are in your same mindset, that have your same goals. And you kind of match your bar to, am I doing what that kid's doing? Like, am I working hard enough to do what this kid's doing? And you kind of see where you match up with other kids. So I think on several different fronts, it's a great place to be.
For sure. Yeah, and learning. Even as adults, there's different running camps now. I know Danny Chester and John Long are doing one in a couple weeks for adults, and it's the same thing. A lot of people aren't educated on it. They want to be, but they don't know how to be. And I was thankful and lucky to have Swag as a coach through high school and elementary school or middle school, and just like the education of it. When I got to college, there were so many of my teammates that had no idea why we were doing a workout or what it was. So to have coaches that are passionate like you are, to educate, not only just tell them this is what we're doing, but giving them the reason why, and figuring out, okay, this is what's best for you, and catering it. With your workouts that you do you cater them more individually, like to some regard, or?
Yeah, well, yes and no. We follow a basic blueprint, but again, as you go as a coach, you kind of figure out what does and doesn't work. And so one of the things that I'm really focused on this year that is totally separate is that the freshmen are doing a lot more interval work early on. A lot of those kids came from track season where they ran a lot of 400s, 800s, and they had that speed. And I think a lot of times when we come into cross country, then we teach them this long, slow distance thing. And then all of a sudden kids don't want to run fast anymore, or they think that they can't run a 5K like they did, whatever. And so with my younger kids, I'm trying to keep that speed and say, all right, so we're going to go hard for this distance. Now we're just going to keep going hard a little bit further, instead of so much focusing, like bringing them in and baptizing them by distance, just kind of gradually working it. But then you see within that group, all right, who's ready to take a little bit more distance, who's good right where they are, who may need to do a little bit more. But every kid, you know, based on either track times, time trials, things that we've done, every kid has a pace chart. that they get. So I use, I'm big on the Jack Daniels stuff. So I use Jack Daniels as my kind of my Bible of coaching. So every kid has a pace chart on what they're expected to hit. I'm not the coach that stands out there with the notebook and writes down every kid's time. I'm not that coach. Some coaches can do it. I've tried it. It doesn't work for me. So I kind of talk to the kids as far as like, treat this workout like a paper that you're turning into your teacher. If you hit the time, like I tell you, that's an A. You got an A workout today. If you're off 5 seconds here or there, that's probably a B workout. If you're way fast, that's probably a C workout. That's not a good workout. So it's trying to hold them accountable. But again, I hand them all a pace chart. They all know. So when I ask them, all right, we're doing 1,200 repeats today, what should your pace be? They should all know, this is what I should be running today. And then it's really, some of my older kids are ready to take on a little more. But again, I think you have to be smart as a coach that just because, so my top kid is a senior, but he's only 2 years old and running. Right? He didn't run as a kid, and he didn't run as a freshman, and he didn't run cross country as a sophomore. He started running track as a sophomore. So last year he was hurt through most of cross country. It's because he wanted the miles, but he's still an infant in running, and so you can't say, oh, you're a junior, you can handle this many miles. You have to kind of say, all right, if we can get you to here, but let's baby step this along the way, and kind of explain to him why you're doing that. And then now he's to the point where he can handle the mileage. He's been put in the summer work, and he can handle the mileage more. But it is and it isn't. We follow basic same workouts, but like today at practice, I had some kids doing a mile repeat, and I had the majority of the group doing 1,200s, and then I had even a few kids that were just doing 800s. That aren't fit enough to kind of do the tougher workout. So it all depends on where the kid is and what they're capable of. When you put them in there too much too early, you get too many injuries and things like that. So you just kind of have to progress them gradually and let them know that it's just a gradual process, So you just don't want them hurt. That's the main thing.
For sure. I like how you talked about like grading it as like an A, B, or C. And when you talked about C, you talked about you were running way too fast.
Right.
So that was probably a C workout, where a lot of people would think, oh, C, they were probably running too slow.
Right.
But talk on that a little bit, because running just as hard can be just as detrimental as running slow.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to educating kids. When I first started running, I was under the impression, like most people are, you run fast all the time and you get faster. If you just run fast all the time, you just get faster. If you run fast all the time, you just get hurt. But again, it goes to educating yourself and reading about the importance of like the long run and the slower pace, and making sure that you hit the slower pace. And if you follow a lot of the pro runners on Instagram or whatever, they talk about hitting the slow pace and being more mature as a runner, and that's really one of the hardest things to teach these young. And again, it's more of a boy problem than it is a girl problem, from what I see. The girls, if you say slow down a little bit, they're cool to slow down a little bit. The boys, it's always like a little bit of a competition. So like explaining things to them, this is a warm-up. I don't need anybody to win the warm-up. Everybody should be together. This is just to get us moving. We've been sitting here talking. I don't need a winner of the warm-up. So it's teaching them what's the benefit again. What are your muscles doing as you're doing this slow run? What benefit are you getting from it? And Lord, if you don't do your easy slow run on Sunday, it's going to start showing in your workouts. Like you can tell as you watch a kid if they're doing what they're supposed to on their own. But yeah, it's making sure they hit those paces is very important. Having the right amount of rest in between, I think, is important too. I think sometimes you get way too much or not enough rest. So, having an understanding as a coach of that kind of stuff. There's a lot of resources out there, and I'm not saying I use Jack Daniels. I'm not saying that it's the only one or it's the one everybody should use or anything like that. But for me, that's what works at this point. But again, I didn't when I first started. 2 years ago, all these freshman kids would show up. I'd be like, go run 30 minutes, and I was just kind of like trying to see if they would do it or not. Then I realized that wasn't the best way. Right, so I get these young kids coming in, maybe they're a little nervous about it. Let's kind of like work with them a little bit more. I do put a lot more time now into the form of their running than I did earlier on. I kind of just said everybody has their own form and go run. And everybody does to an extent, but I think there's some principles that you can still work on with kids that are universal. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Especially those new runners, beginner runners too. You can kind of mold them a little bit more as they go. They don't have that natural stride. I mean, you have your natural stride, but at the same time, you can tweak it a little bit more. But that's the great thing about having the pro runners as a resource. I know I've followed Molly Seidel on Strava sometimes, and I was like, oh wow, she ran that pace.
Right.
I mean, for her easy pace, but she also, got bronze at the Olympics.
Right.
But it's nice to see that okay, I can run slower and it's not going to hurt me. It's actually going to benefit me because look, she's fit.
Right.
Or Ryan Hall, I remember him saying like how he would run like 1 or 2 easy days with the women instead. I'm like, okay, if he can move down and run, several minutes slower, I don't need to be running at this faster pace all the time. No wonder I'm getting hurt.
Right.
So it's nice to have all these resources.
Yeah, and just educating kids. And again, I thought one thing as I started running, and so it's just being open enough to learn what you don't know. I think sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and then I think the more you get into things, you start to understand things a little bit better, and you start to ask people that you think understand things. So, just the more you learn about it, I think the better.
Cool. Well, just kind of to wrap it up, I was told to ask about your tattoos. You have some really cool ones. So maybe tell us about, one of them or something that...
I'll just go over the running tattoos.
Okay.
I have quite a few.
Yeah.
I'll go through a few of them, really.
Okay.
They're pretty, whatever. So the running-wise, so it's Steve Prefontaine. Says pre, and it actually says trail of miles. So I know that in the book, once a runner, it's trial of miles. But to me, it was like everywhere, and using Strava as my really thought, everywhere you go and run, you leave a trail of miles. And you look on Strava, and there's your trail of miles all the way through another state, or all the way through a park, or all the way through whatever. So that was kind of my thinking in putting that on there. I have the Kinvara #1.
I remember
my favorite shoe. We're up to 13 now, so I've had every one along the way, and multiple pairs. It's my favorite. It's my go-to shoe for everything in life. But that's the Kinvara 1. This is from Where the Wild Things Are, the book Where the Wild Things Are, where Max gets sent to his room and ends up over there where the wild things are, and that's more symbolic of being a 4th grade teacher, and like people think these kids are so wild, and then they come in my classroom and they see I'm the one in control of it. And it's like he's the king of the wild things right there. So that was that, and I just thought it was funny. Like I used to get tattoos when I first started. I got them, thought it was all about being tough, and now it's just like anything to get a laugh. But probably the one I get the most comments about is the Forrest Gump tattoo. So I got Forrest Gump here when he's on his long road across the country, because it's Forrest Gump, and he's a great American hero of all things, and lover of Jenny, and a shrimp entrepreneur, and a boat captain, and a war veteran, and a ping pong champion, and a first ultra runner of American history. He's so many things to list, it's hard to even keep the list going. So those are probably those are the main ones that I get comments on. So anything to get a laugh out of people. The Forrest Gump's tattoo starts more conversations in public. If I would have known how many conversations it would start with people I don't even want to talk to sometimes, I wouldn't even got it. But it is funny hearing people want to come up and take a picture of it, or people want to come up and ask why you got it and things like that. So it is funny in that sense. But one time I was on my motorcycle, and somebody in the car next to me took a video of it and was laughing and stuff, and put it up on Instagram, and they were one of my brother's contacts. So he was like, "Look, these people are laughing at you." So it's just funny in that sense, that kind of stuff. So
that's awesome.
Those are the main ones. And Barry Hayworth asked one time how I determine what goes on there. I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't know.
Yeah.
Just one day I go, I think I'm going to get that tattooed on me for good. So.
That's awesome. Well, I do love the Kinvara one, as I do with shoes all the time.
Right.
That one's pretty cool. But thank you for taking the time tonight. I know it's a busy week and the season is about to start. You have your races starting soon, and trivia night for your girls are excited. We're excited to have them back. But thanks for taking the time tonight, and good luck this season.
Yeah, and if I could just say a couple more, one more thing, would just be, there's a lot of runners out in the community. I see a lot of runners out in the community, which is amazing. It's great to see. But just about every middle school, every Jefferson County public middle school, is missing a coach. Just about every single one of them. And we just had a lady, Cindy Meyer, who's doing incredible work at Wilder Elementary, but she just took over Camera's job also, and then also found out that Westport didn't have a coach, so now she's kind of doing what I did a couple years ago. So
she's awesome.
Mad respect to her for doing that. Danny Chester just picked up Barrett Middle School. Again, it's kind of our job as runners to pass this passion on to the next group, and I see some very passionate runners out there. And I would just say, don't be scared to like take that chance. I started as an elementary school coach, and I used to tell people I'll never be a high school coach. And here I am, and I'll never be an elementary school coach again. You know, and I won't say never again, but this is definitely where my passion is. So I would really challenge some of the runners out there in the community that have that passion and have the time to it's just a couple nights a week you got to put in with these kids, and it does a whole lot. I want to thank all the coaches that helped me get to where I am. Like I said, Barry Hayworth and Joe Beekler and Kenny Stopman, Thomas Cave and Jacob Thompson. Ben Tracy's worked with me throughout. Tim Cantrell in Northern Kentucky. Marsha Park. Gosh, I know I'm going to be leaving some people off here. But those are coaches that have really meant something to me. And I also want to say this too. My second year coaching, we had like the 15th ranked girls team in the state, and we didn't qualify for state. And I got a phone call that night from DeMond Smith, and it was the nicest, most encouraging phone call. Totally out of the blue, didn't have my phone number, sent me a message. It was like, hey, I need your phone number. I didn't know what he was calling for. And it was the nicest, most encouraging phone call that I've ever had as a coach. And I want to make sure he knows that I will always appreciate that phone call. And again, I think that as coaches, encouraging the next coach is part of, I mean, we're all out there competitors and we all, stare each other down and everything else. But I think at the end of the day, we all want what's best for the next person's program, and we want them to be successful also. And I mean, Lord, when I look at DeMond's team over there, a lot of those kids I coached at JCTMS. So I want nothing but success for those kids. And again, I feel like some of those kids weren't running before they came to JCTMS, and now they're running in high school, and that like gives me the biggest smile because they're still doing it. So maybe that passion, maybe they did catch the passion. But I really just wanted to thank all those coaches that have helped me along the way, and give a shout out to all the elementary school coaches that are doing an amazing job out there, because they don't get nearly the amount of love. JCPS doesn't pay them any money. It's all for the love of the kids. I mean, Ryan Murphy over here is doing incredible work at Dunn Elementary. I know David Powell has been doing incredible work at Bloom over the last few years. There's some great coaches out there that are bringing that passion along. We just need more coaches, we just need more coaches. So that's really my challenge to the running community is let's get out here and take these kids and help them catch your passion. Because I think we all know what kind of people runners are. I've never met a runner that's like a bad person, right? I mean, like across the board, I've never met a runner that's like a bad person. So let's get out there and think of all the good we can do in the community by just bringing more kids to running. More kids to running means less bad kids, right? So I just wanted to thank all the coaches that helped me get to where I'm at today, and the ones that still encourage. I mean, like I said, Barry Hayworth still sends me text messages that are encouraging after races and things like that. So it's coaches like that that have your back even on the bad days. That obviously I want to beat all those coaches that I mentioned that I race against, but at the end of the day, I'm proud of every one of them and cheer for all of them. But I just wanted all of them to know that I appreciate all the help that I got from a little coach that was getting like not a lot of respect to where I am today. There was a lot of coaches that helped this process, and I don't want to see. And I also want to thank all the athletes that have run for me, if I can say that real quick too, because I'm not a good coach unless I have good athletes, right? So unless the kids that came and ran for me, that parents that chose to run for me for the club teams and things like that, I've enjoyed every second of coaching. But I hope we get more coaches. I hope we get more passionate coaches out here. So that's my hope to the running community, is that we get more coaches out here.
I love it, that passion. We definitely have a lot of runners in the community that could get involved, or, I mean, that have that passion. So I hope this inspired someone to maybe try coaching out that has not tried it in the past.
Yeah,
And,
it'd be great.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Yep.